name's Stephanie, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about my June TBR, and it's also Pride Month, so my TBR is going to be on theme, just like my makeup, which was fun to do. This is going to be a realistic TBR because I'm not someone who can read a lot. Like, I'll get random bursts where I can read like more than 5 books a month, but to be honest, it's usually about 0 to 3 books a month that I actually in reality read, and that just comes down to like scheduling and also preference. I find that I can't really finish one book and then jump straight into another because my mind's kind of still thinking about that other book, and I feel like I'm kind of like almost cheating on the book in a way because I'm not able to sit with it and think about it a little bit more, because like once I start reading a new book, the other book's pretty much out of my head. So it's just going to be a small TBR because I really want to actually read all of these books. I'm really trying to schedule more reading into my routine so that I actually get some books read so I can actually talk about them. As June has already begun, I don't want to overcommit. So I'm just going to be talking about the few books on my TBR. So the first book is Bellies by Nicola Dinnan. Basically this couple that is together and then one of them decides to transition. It's about everything involved in that, and I've heard really good things about this book. So it reads, it begins as your typical boy meets boy. While out with friends at a university drag night, Tom buys Ming a drink. Confident and witty, a charming young playwright, Ming is the perfect antidote for Tom's awkward energy, and their connection is instant. Tom finds himself deeply and desperately drawn into Ming's orbit, and on the cusp of graduation, he's already mapped out their future together. But shortly after they move to London to start their next chapter, Ming announces her intention to transition. I think this will be an emotional read, and I think like one of those ones that really like delves into relationships and also about who we are as people. Like, something happens in our lives that kind of makes us question our identities as well. I think like it's really gonna delve deep into identity and relationships and just like life, I guess, like those things that like are the foundations of who we are. It also talks about, it says, from London to Kuala Lumpur, New York to Cologne, we follow Tom and Ming as they face shifts in their relationship in the wake of Ming's transition. And I've been to Cologne, which is in Germany, and I'm going to New York, and I've been to Kuala Lumpur, and I've been to London. So it'll be really cool to read about these different places as well in this book and see how they compare to the real thing. I think this will be a really interesting read, and I've heard really good things. I've seen a couple that were kind of like average reviews, but I think like for the majority, a lot of them really like this book. So hopefully it'll be good. Hopefully I like it. Yeah. So this is one. The next one is Chlorine by Jade Song. This one is one that I've actually talked about on this channel before. It was on my TBR cart. That's what I was trying to focus on with this TBR. Bellies was also actually on my TBR cart because I've recently acquired it, and I'm trying to get through that first before I start buying new books or looking into more things. So this one, I actually didn't realise that it like qualified as a book for Pride Month. I saw it on someone's like Pride Month recommended reads, and I was like, oh yeah, I have that one, and it's about mermaids, and I love mermaids. So it even says in the beginning, a mesmerizing tale of sapphic longing, intense obsession, and fierce defiant becoming. And it says, enthralling and visceral, this is an unforgettable vision of adolescence in all of its horrific glory. I'm actually really intrigued by this one. I've heard it delves into like mental health as well, and so I think it's going to be a lot about identity, mental health, especially because I'm pretty sure the main character is a teenager, although I'm not too sure if it actually reads as YA. It could be like an adult book with a teenage main character. That's actually a thing, which I didn't know. I found this out recently. You can actually have adult books that feature teenage characters as the main character. So actually these 2 books are the only books that are on my TBR. I also have one other, but I've started reading it, so I mean I guess you can technically call it on my TBR, but it's more of a currently reading situation. So I am currently reading Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. This is very cute and fun. It's about main character Yadriel. He is trans. He lives in this community where they are kind of a little bit witchy, but they don't like being called that. And they protect the real world from the spirit world, and they make sure the spirits don't turn evil and make sure they cross over in a timely manner, in a peaceful manner. And gender plays a big part in their community because it kind of determines like what kind of abilities that they're like deity bestows upon them. So it's kind of about his journey, proving himself, I guess, to himself and proving himself to his family. He also meets Julian along the way, and I haven't gotten to this part yet, but the back description alludes to a romance between them, which I'm not sure how that's gonna go, because Yadriel is a real person and Julian is a spirit of a boy who's recently died. So far it's not like morbid and sad. It's kind of like very joyful and sweet, and it has moments of action, but then it has moments of like character reflection and development, so hopefully it'll be good. So actually, really, technically, these three are the ones that I have on my June TBR. I also wanted to give some recommendations while I was here. Lately I feel like I haven't been reading too many LGBTQ books, and it makes me sad because I'm not even supporting my own community. But I do try and read a lot of books with bisexual main characters. I have actually lately been able to find, when I say lately, the past few years, but lately I have actually been able to find some really good representation of bisexual main characters, and this is like something that I never come across as a teen, which is kind of sad. But I did want to talk about a couple that I have read recently. So this one is Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrane, and this one I finished at the beginning of the year. This one features a bi main character, and she is in a tricky situation with money, and she ends up getting this offer of her landlord, and he says, can you please fake marry me so I can get my inheritance, and then I'll give you a portion of it, and then we can divorce and get on with our lives. She's kind of in a position where she actually is like almost about to get kicked out of her apartment because she doesn't have the money, so she kind of is like really desperate and takes him up on the offer. Part of his condition is that she goes home with him for Christmas to spend time with his family, to kind of like show her off as like his new fiance. But then when she arrives, it turns out his sister is actually a woman that she spent a magical day with and fell in love with her and hasn't been able to get over her since. So it's pretty complicated for her, and as you can imagine, fun things, I don't like the word ensue, I was going to say ensue, but I don't like that word. Fun things happen after that. So it's very cute and sweet, this book, and I recommend as like a really cute like romance book if that's what you're into. Another book that I would like to recommend that I really cannot speak more highly about is They Hate Each Other by Amanda Woody. This is a book that I will literally never stop recommending to people. It follows these two boys, teenagers, so it is young adult, but I will get to more of that later. It's about these two main characters. Both boys are bisexual, and their friends are just obsessed with the idea of getting them to date each other, and they all think, oh, you'll be amazing together, you'll do great, not because you're both bi, but like we just think you two together will be amazing. But these two people are like, we hate each other's guts. Why on earth would we want to be together? And so some assumptions happen about this night that they end up spending in the same bed together, and then they decide, actually this could work in our favor. Why don't we pretend we're dating, and then in a couple of months we'll have this huge blowout, this huge breakup, and then their friends won't ever bother them ever again about being together. So this begins, and I actually, why I really enjoy this is because like when they start trying like pretend that they're dating and they're like trying to touch each other, like the way it's written, they're like, it is so awkward for them, and I feel like a lot of times those books like, oh, it just comes so naturally to people even though they like hate each other. No, these two like actually literally hate each other. They're both very closed off people, and I think that's part of the reason why they kind of do hate each other. But like as they're pretending to be dating, they're obviously spending more time together, so they kind of like start seeing that maybe the other person's that bad, or maybe the reason they act a certain way is because they're actually going through a lot in their home life. So it's about them kind of like actually getting to know each other, because it kind of becomes apparent that they actually don't know each other. They hate this other person and they actually don't know them at all. And then does it turn into friendship? Does it turn into more? But anyway, the reason I love this book is that like, one, I feel like the way it's written as like enemies to lovers is actually really accurate. It is truly enemies to lovers. They are truly enemies, and the way the characters are written, they're all really multi-dimensional. Even the side characters, like there's a lot going on in all their lives, and they're just such real characters. Like they could literally jump out of the page. Not only that, like yes, it's like a romance enemies to lovers kind of book, it also deals with a lot of other serious topics, and maybe trigger warnings with this one. Like I said in the beginning, it's YA, but it's YA done so well. And I feel like this is part of why people kind of shit on YA sometimes, is that I think, obviously, like, adults are the ones that write YA most of the time, and it comes from perspective of like, oh, they're not going to understand, so we're going to write this as like a shallow story, or not very developed characters, like very surface level characters, because they're not going to understand anyway. But it's really important to understand that, like, teenagers are not shallow people. Like, they think very deeply, and that should translate into the writing that's written for them. They are intelligent enough to understand these concepts. So yeah, basically I can't rave enough about this book. It's YA written so incredibly well. And which also leads me to another kind of recommendation. It's a book that's coming out soon. Amanda Woody, the author of They Hate Each Other, is having another one of their books released, I think in October, and it's called Exes and Foes, and it's got a bisexual main character, which I'm also excited about. I love what the cover, I love what the cover implies. So Exes and Foes. The description starts this way. It says, when two ex-best friends decide to hold a competition for the new girl's heart, they don't expect to fall for each other instead. Yeah, really looking forward to that. And yeah, so that's all I have for you today. So my TBR are these books, Bellies, Chlorine, and Cemetery Boys. I will be doing a reading blog of these. I'll be doing a reading blog of Cemetery Boys in one, and then, because I've already started this, so Cemetery Boys in one, and then Chlorine and Bellies in another, and hopefully you'll see all these by the end of the month, and I am putting that deadline on myself. I hope you like my makeup. This is my realistic Pride Month TBR. If you've read any of these books, please let me know down below, and I would really like to know if you thought they were good, and you can tell me if you thought they were bad too. Just please no spoilers, that's like my pet peeve. And let me know if you have any recommendations for other books I should read, which I'm not going to read in Pride Month, but it doesn't matter. I will read LGBTQ+ books all year round. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Bye! Do you get it? Bye. I crack myself up. So lame.